Hello and welcome to Fireside FileMaker, a podcast with John Mark Osborne and Michael Rashad talking about everything FileMaker. Hello, this is Michael Rashad.
And my name is John Mark Osborne, and welcome to Fireside FileMaker. What we're going to talk about today is the Workplace Innovation Platform, or WIP, W-I-P for short. Now, you may have seen it and been confused or wanted to know more information about it. It's all over the Claris.com website or FileMaker.com website. And when you Google WIP, we'll call it WIP from now on, FileMaker is almost every hit on the first page, and the second page for that fact. Some people think it's a category for technology that Claris created, and in a way it is, since FileMaker has been WIP compliant for almost 30 years, and we'll get into what WIP is. But it's actually a category, a software platform category created by G2, and FileMaker just happens to be the leader. And if you're not familiar with G2, it's a technology review company. So here's 5 points from G2 that qualify something as a WIP tool, a WIP software application. And it's the abbreviated version. There's a whole description of, I think it's like 5 or 6 paragraphs on their website. But this is just the summary version. So point number 1, a WIP tool must be able to have it should have a visual design interface and a full stack development tools. And I wasn't sure what full stack was, so I looked it up, and it's basically development tools that handle the front end and the back end. That's a complete package there. And of course, we know that FileMaker is that complete package. It's a one-stop shopping. And of course, it has that visual design too. It's always had that. Point number 2, it should be a collaborative application management and have secure communication. So that's certainly true about FileMaker. People have spent a lot of time on the security in FileMaker, and you can collaborate on it. Multiple people can work on that software at the same time. Point number 3, it should be cross-platform via on-premise, cloud, or hybrid development. And I didn't know what hybrid development was, so I looked it up. It's a blend between native platform code and web code. And it's a tiny bit of a stretch for FileMaker, but essentially it does allow you to put web code in there. You can publish to the web, you can use web viewers, all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely there. And of course, we know it's probably one of the oldest cross-platform, binary compatible databases on the market.
And by that, we mean, John, that it works on Windows as well as Mac, which makes it very unique. And it also works on iOS, and with a converter tool, FM Live Code, it can also work it on Android as well. So it really is cross-platform in many different ways.
Yeah, and the cool thing about going from Mac to Windows or to iOS is there's absolutely no conversion needed. That's what I mean by binary compatible. The applications are different, but the files they create are exactly the same, or at least they work on both platforms or all 3 platforms. Point number 4, they have to have integration tools connecting to systems, services, and platforms. And as you know, over the last 10 years, FileMaker and now Claris employees are really investing heavily in, integrating with other tools and connecting. I mean, there are so many to list here. It's incredible how much integration FileMaker has. I mean, starting off with ODBC, XML, PHP, all these things it integrates with. And point number 5, the last point, it must have a partner network, learning resources, and a community. And you all know about the FileMaker Business Alliance, which is now the Claris Business Alliance. They have learning resources galore, and certainly several communities to get on to ask questions. So what this is saying is that FileMaker is the perfect, in my opinion, WIP tool. And there's a lot of people out there who are doing this and trying to catch up to FileMaker, but they've been doing it for 30 years, so they have a gigantic head start. They essentially made the category, even though they didn't create it. They've just been working towards that, and now somebody said, "Hey," G2 went out and said, "Hey, you are WIP. We're going to define you because there's other people trying to copy what you're doing." Rightly so, because it's a great idea. What FileMaker does is makes development easy. So here's a layman's definition for what we just said. Maybe something that doesn't have so many words in there that you have to look up like I did. And basically, it says a tool that allows you to overcome the work rut caused by inefficient, repetitive manual processes and applications that don't fit your business model.
I've got a slightly shorter definition for that, John, a layman's definition. Mine is do it now and do it fast.
I think that's even better, right? FileMaker just lets you do things fast. It allows you to get that feedback very quickly from the application that something's working.
And a lot of the time, that translates as in other platforms and programs, people spend a lot of time thinking about how they're going to solve that problem. But in FileMaker, by the time they've started thinking about it, you've done it.
And I also think it has to do with FileMaker being forgiving. And a lot of database systems, you have to plan everything out to the nth degree. With FileMaker, yeah, you plan your solutions, but there's this forgiving aspect where you can change the name of a field and it will go out, and wherever that field is referenced on layouts and scripts and calculations, it'll update it for you. So it's a very forgiving platform. And that's why you can, in a lot of cases, do it right now. And of course, do it fast and then fix your problems if there are any with that, with what you were trying to do.
But it also goes further than that, John. It's the ability to, as the business needs change, FileMaker allows you to make those changes without having to go back to the beginning and start all over again, which often happens with the more complex systems. System like Oracle are very unforgiving. If you don't get it absolutely right, you've got to go back and rewrite a whole bunch of code. FileMaker, you just make the changes.
Yeah, it's very true. I don't think a lot of people realize that neither of us are Oracle developers, but we've heard about how FileMaker makes life so much easier that we just know this information. So here's another definition that I came up with, and I think it furthers what we're trying to say. And we want to attack what WIP is from all different directions because this is a very important concept for developers and people using FileMaker to understand that that this is what FileMaker is and has been for a long time, and they're just basically being recognized for it now. So here's the other definition. It's a development tool used by developers and non-developers, subject matter experts, in other words, to create a solution to automate a business process that isn't addressed by off the shelf applications. And I like that one because it mentions off the shelf applications like accounting, document management, contact management, invoicing, reporting.
And pretty much any business scenario you can think of.
You could go on with anything. And a lot of times these off the shelf products don't meet don't meet your business needs exactly. And that's what's great about FileMaker is the layman, the subject matter expert, the person who doesn't know how to program a database can very easily get into the FileMaker and customize a solution that fits that need for your company. And it may do the whole company wide. It may be only a little process in that company, but it can be customized and tailored to your needs. And that's what they're saying that this is. It's one of those tools like a hammer that everybody can use. FileMaker is a great hammer, but it's also a Swiss Army knife to some degree, I guess. But it's that tool that anybody can use. It's not like those complex. It's not like a big giant piece of equipment like Oracle or something where you're got hydraulics and things like that, and you have to have a license to drive it. No, anybody can use a hammer, and that's what FileMaker is.
Yeah, and the other thing that's really important, FileMaker allows businesses to work the way they are used to working and the work in the way that they understand and are comfortable with. It doesn't force them to compromise as do so many other solutions, specifically cloud-based ones, where it's been designed for the masses, but it doesn't quite fit everybody perfectly. And that's where FileMaker fits.
Yeah, these off-the-shelf products or cloud-based products, as you said, are trying to make one solution that fits everybody's needs. And FileMaker and other WIP tools, which we'll talk about, there are other software products on the market, they come it from the other direction, whereas they try to design something that actually meets your specific needs. So what it comes down to is WIP tools allow you to design a solution that works exactly the way your business works. It also frees you up to focus on critical and strategic business projects. In other words, you're not working on these manual processes, these things that have put you in a work rut. You're not trying to make Excel do what FileMaker can do much better. It's freed you up to do other things, to do better things at your company, not these manual things. I remember when I used to work at a county, and they had FileMaker there, but they also had an Oracle database, a mainframe running it, and they also had spreadsheets. They had Excel. And what they were doing is somebody 2 days out of every week would sit down and take the data from their mainframe and manipulate it into a report. Literally 2 days. And you can imagine how many mistakes they made. Brought in FileMaker, we did that same thing. In a couple of weeks, we developed a solution to import the data from the mainframe, pull it in, organize it, do that. And it would allow you to click a button, and 15 minutes later, you'd have a report.
Yeah, that's one of the key things about businesses. They spend typically inordinate amount of times performing administrative functions that FileMaker can automate and eliminate that administrative backload, which makes businesses in general more efficient, which means that, and it's a universal law of business, if you make a business more efficient, that business must become more profitable. It cannot become less so. Now, there are some businesses that no matter what you do, they're never going to be profitable, but they shouldn't be operating in the first place.
Yeah, and the thing is that you have to spend money to develop a FileMaker database. And some people go, I don't have the money to do that. But you'll get that money back for sure, because over the years you'll be having these employees not doing these manual tasks, these repetitive tasks anymore, not trying to make an off-the-shelf product do what it really is not meant to do. And so you'll have this ability to send them off onto other projects and things like that, and you'll eventually be more efficient, get more done, and you're going to be making more money for your business that way.
Right. And so, actually, you just raised a good point, and it just occurred to me that I want to just talk briefly about ROI, which is return on investment. And everything can be measured. The cost of something can be measured in what you get back out from that investment. So that's the return on investment. And FileMaker gives a massive return on investment generally across the board, and sometimes extraordinary. I have one particular client who 7 or 8 years ago spent 90,000 with me to develop a system that has generated, in the time since it went live, $12 million in additional revenue.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and they are very grateful.
And there's lots of stories out there. You can't necessarily get that kind of return on investment, but you're likely to get some kind of return on investment from implementing a FileMaker solution to replace, because it bridges an off-the-shelf app and an enterprise solution. So, for instance, spreadsheets are often abused as WIP tools. It's really not. It's basically designed to add up numbers, and people take it way too far. And frankly, Microsoft has taken it way too far. Spreadsheet doesn't need to do all the things it does. Oracle is on the other side. It's like a sludge hammer when a claw hammer will do. So FileMaker is that claw hammer. In fact, I've had dozens of Oracle employees inside my FileMaker classes because they use FileMaker because they know it's a better tool for some situations. You don't always need that sludge hammer.
Yeah, I don't actually think that your analogy of using, what did you call it? A claw hammer. I think FileMaker is a Swiss Army knife. A claw hammer is very limited. It's got very limited functions. A Swiss Army knife can do everything. So I prefer to think of FileMaker as a Swiss Army knife.
So we'll make Oracle a machete then. How about that? There we go. Um,
It's a flamethrower.
yeah, flamethrower, right? So basically, and I've said this, and I want to say some things several times, but WIP tools allow you to tailor a solution to the exact needs of your business, which makes it more efficient. And efficiency is money to a business. It really is. So a WIP tool must also be user friendly for non-developer creative types. That's that subject matter expert I mentioned before. So things like Web Direct is a great example. You can publish something quickly to the web without knowing a whole bunch of acronyms like XML or PHP or RESTful or any of that stuff. You don't have to know that stuff to get it on the web because it'll render the layouts for you. And the interface and data combination in a single file for FileMaker makes it really easy. Most databases are separated. And because it's all in one place, and because you don't have to go use Visual Basic or something to do scripting inside FileMaker, it's got its own language, and everything's built into one. It's a one-stop shopping. It makes it so easy to use for those subject matter experts, those non-developer creative types.
And the reason for that is because FileMaker has incredibly great design tools. And assuming that you have some degree of graphic ability, you can design beautiful looking solutions. And even if you don't, you can use any one of the standard themes to develop things that look very presentable. And if the more time you spend on the interface, the more you will get the users to embrace what you're doing because they then want to use it. But nevertheless, the tools are absolutely there, and you can focus as a developer. We can focus on user needs, and even somebody in house who isn't a developer can also focus on those users' needs because there are always going to be more than one person using a solution.
Now, a WIP tool must also have power for seasoned developers and facilitate integration with other systems. And you and I both know that it's easy to get into FileMaker, but it's got that depth. And it also has the integration. It's got the API support for RESTful, XML, PHP, JSON, SQL, ODBC, et cetera, et cetera. And now they've come out with Claris Connect, which I think people are going to, I've talked to developers, read the white papers. They're amazed at what Claris Connect can do to connect you to cloud services. Things that would take hours and hours and hours before can now be done in a few minutes.
But not only can it be done in a few minutes, John, it can be done with like people like me who don't know JSON or APIs, which is really important because I'm sure I'm in the majority when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm an HTML and PHP guy, and I type it from scratch. I know it's old school, but that's even still doing any of this kind of acronym coding is painful for me. I don't like to do it, and if I can get something that will do it for me, like Claris Connect, then not only is it a seasoned developer tool, it's also a subject matter expert tool. So that's very exciting for me.
Yeah, and that's going to translate into lower cost of development because it will just speed up the process of integration with other solutions and other types of applications.
Yeah, I can't wait till 20 years from now when you can just talk to FileMaker and it'll build a database for you. You don't even have to know what he said. I wanted to do this, and you don't even have to know the commands. And one of these days it'll be there, right?
Yeah,
I know I'm dreaming. I'll be dead long before that happens, but it could happen. I've watched Star Trek before.
really. I would never have guessed.
So a WIP tool must allow for rapid and flexible development with visual tools that prevent syntax errors.
Right, and we've got the script debugger, which is a fantastic tool. We've got the data viewer, which is also amazing and can be used in many different ways, testing calculations and stuff like that. So there are a lot of tools that really do help. And if there's an error in your code, FileMaker a lot of the time will just tell you there and then that this isn't correct, or syntax is wrong, or you're getting the wrong result. So it really helps that way.
Yeah, especially in the calculation engine. You can't get out of that calculation dialog until the syntax is correct. And this is different than HTML or XML. It just won't work. And you search and search and search, and you finally find the semicolon that's the problem. It's so much easier when it just tells you up front it's not going to work. It still may not work down the line because you haven't coded it properly, but at least you know the syntax is correct.
Correct.
So a WIP tool also allows teams to share information securely and cross-platform. We know that's FileMaker for sure. That's what it's done all along.
Right. And so the key thing to that is that everybody is always on the same page. Everybody's looking at the same information. Everybody's able to enter information, and then everybody else can see that information that's been added. And in theory, nothing will fall through the cracks.
So we mentioned this before. WIP must have a professional network of developers and an active online community. Now, there is only one professional network of developers. That's the Claris Business Alliance, and you can find out about it by going to the claris.com website or the filemaker.com. And they have so many active online community. Probably the most popular one is the one that's provided by FileMaker or Claris International, and that's the community. It's just called the FileMaker community, and I'm up there all the time, and it's great. People give so much of their time for free there, and will help you if you're able to voice what it is that you need. They'll try to go and they may answer it directly or write a calculation for you or modify one of your files or send you to a resource. But it's an incredibly important aspect of the WIP technology or the WIP platform.
Yeah, and some of the people who are on these communities, not only the FileMaker community itself, but the forums, they spend so much time answering questions from other less experienced users. You wonder how they actually have the time to get any work done.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I wonder about some of the people are just like there. I try to get to a question and like, oh, this guy's answered all the 20 questions that were on here already. I didn't even get a chance. But that's how helpful people are, and that's how the FileMaker market's been ever since the beginning. That's what drew me to it.
Yeah, it's definitely a willingness to share ideas and concepts and help other people out. And it's a very rich community because of that willingness to help. So many people in so many other industries and around the world, they don't want to share their knowledge or help anybody. They just want to do their job and they can't be bothered with everybody else or anything else. And that's completely the opposite with the FileMaker community.
Right? It's almost like other platforms withhold their information. The developers don't want to share it because it's their edge. And on the flip side, FileMaker developers love to share their information. In fact, it just makes sense. I mean, make everybody better. FileMaker be more respected because there's better developers out there, and a lot of these FileMaker developers have that mindset. It's like, I know how to do this. Why don't I show somebody how to do it? I'll write a blog article or record a video or help somebody online.
Well, the funny thing about it is that also, as we develop, and I'm speaking from my personal experience, and I'm sure it's the same for you, John, as we develop, we're constantly coming up with new ways to do something. And when we come up with something, a new way to do something, we're excited about that and we want to share it with other developers and the community. So we write a blog or we do a video about it, and that goes out there. But it's not only the fact that we've shared that idea that's exciting, it's the fact that somebody else will take that idea and run with it and go, yeah, that's really interesting. I wonder if, and expand and take that idea to places that we never considered initially. But it's that sharing that makes all of this happen.
That's well said for sure. So it's kind of wrapping this all up. We're not done yet, but wrapping up this kind of long definition of what WIP is. It's almost like G2 and Claris got together and created this category especially for FileMaker. That's because FileMaker's been doing it for so long and made it so obvious that this is an important way for people to solve their business issues that G2 took notice. They had no choice. So you've got to understand this, that Claris made the category, but they didn't invent the category, if that makes sense for you.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
G2 did. And what they did was they left it up to review, people, the public, to say which tool was best. They did reviews and they got the public to, and so there are other WIP tools out there like Airtable, Salesforce Lightning, Google App Maker, AppSheet. I don't even know how to pronounce this one. Linux Database, Zoho Creator, QuickBase, K2 Platform. There's 27 in total. And they were voted out of these 27 the best WIP tool out there.
Right, but I will also interject that over the years, you and I and all of us in the community have heard there's a new FileMaker killer out there, and they don't generally last very long. They tend to die by the wayside because how do you kill something as powerful and as easy to use and work with as FileMaker? You don't. You just, it's not going to happen.
And just to bring this into focus, when I was working at the Mac shop in Sunnyvale, California, this was back in, I guess, in the early 90s, I think. I'm so old now, I forget. But Acius, which makes Fourth Dimension, which I believe is still around, tried to bring out a FileMaker killer. And I cannot remember what the name of the product is for the life of me. And they said, "Oh, this is better than FileMaker, blah blah blah." And honestly, it wasn't. It was too hard to use, and FileMaker, beat it. But this happens all the time. It's throughout the years, not just recently, but way back in time. And FileMaker keeps going above and beyond them because of the way that it was designed. They understand what WIP is even before WIP was defined by G2. So this is what we've always known. FileMaker is a cost-effective licensing, support, and development. It's cost effective. I know some people gripe and say, well, the cost of FileMaker has gone up over the years. Well, they have to stay in business, but they're still significantly less expensive than other products on the market.
Well, especially if you take into account the amount of money that you save on the front end developing your solution. Because if you can get to a usable solution very quickly, which you can with FileMaker, you've already started saving money, and that's going to offset the cost of licensing. So FileMaker licensing for what you get with the tool itself, I think is an absolute bargain.
You're right. You're well said about that. It's not just that their actual cost can be less, but then because it's a rapid development tool, you can produce a solution in a fraction of the time of anything on the market.
And a fraction of the time equals a fraction of the cost.
And then it's binary cross-platform compatible, as we mentioned. So there's another thing that's great about it. It's not just Windows or Mac, it's both at the same time.
Sure.
So FileMaker, and it was Claris, and then it was FileMaker, now it's Claris again, has spent 30 years producing a WIP tool, even though it wasn't called WIP before. It wasn't called a workplace innovation platform tool. The competitors out there have spent far less time. They don't know as much. It takes a lot of fine tuning to make a product like this. And you should be proud to be on the FileMaker platform now that it's been defined as a workplace innovation platform.
Yeah, and most of the other WIP or WIP programs that you mentioned are relatively new, and there's absolutely no guarantee that any of them will ever gain enough market share to stay viable. I mean, I know that businesses these days are used to racking up enormous losses before they make a profit. Uber just posted a loss last year of $7 billion. Now, I don't understand how anybody can run a business that loses $7 billion and hope to make money at the end of it. But FileMaker has been around a long time. It's been improved dramatically over the 33 years I've been working with it. But the fundamental ease of use and the power of it has never changed.
And you can expect it to stay the same because if you watched our conversation with the Claris podcast, the two-part podcast, you know that we have two very smart guys at the helm, or they're not at the helm, but they're part of that where they're taking the FileMaker boat across the sea. They know what they're doing. They've been there for a long time. They understand what FileMaker is. They understand what WIP is, and they're going to take us to where we want to go and making FileMaker easier and more powerful to use in the future.
And I'm going to bring up another small aspect. FileMaker allows businesses to a very large degree to go paperless. And so, why print out an invoice and put it in the mail when you can save it as a PDF and email it to your customer? They can then print it if they want to, but you don't have to. So everything that FileMaker is doing is allowing you to use less and less paper and spend less time printing and filing.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I actually printed an invoice. It's been years.
people pay you, John?
Right. Sometimes. Some people think I just sit here on the podcast or write blog articles and money magically appears in my bank account. No, I actually have to work beyond all these things. And the paperless thing is also interesting in the move to mobility, which is really part of the WIP, which we haven't really, emphasized enough. So because of what's been done with FileMaker Go as well as WebDirect, FileMaker is completely mobile. It's really a killer app for solving what you do at your business locally, as well as what some of your employees might do outside of the business remotely. It's really going to help you save on printing paper, as well as just allow your workforce to be more dynamic because they're able to work mobily.
And just continuing with that theme, FileMaker allows you to design mobile applications that have just the amount of information necessary for the person who's using it to do their job. It can then connect directly to the hosted file if they want to, or it can be set up to sync that information when they're finished working. That's a phenomenally powerful tool to deploy.
Yeah, and it's all in one tool. The web, desktop, mobile, it's all there in one tool, and it's an amazing tool. I don't think people often realize that if they try to replicate what FileMaker can do with other tools, it requires multiple tools. FileMaker can do it all with one tool, and that means it's going to break less often because it's one company. It's all working together. It's designed to work together. So it's truly an amazing application, a software development tool. It's a workplace innovation platform tool. And the reason why it's at the top is because people know how powerful FileMaker is.
And there's a little bit more to it than that also. It's that a lot of businesses these days use what I call fragmented technology. They've got one program to do this, one program to do that, another to do this, another to do that. So the people who are working in the business are having to go to and look at multiple places to do the things they need to do. Whereas with FileMaker, it's a one-stop solution. It will do everything that your business needs to do, and everything's all at the tip of your fingertips, and you can get to anything from anywhere and everything from everywhere. And that's really powerful stuff.
So most likely you're listening to this podcast because you're already familiar with FileMaker. You love it already, and you wanted to find out what we're going to say about the workplace innovation platform. So think of this as stuff that you may have already known, but you can point somebody who's on the fence about FileMaker or doesn't know FileMaker, point them to this podcast, and they can understand how FileMaker is a workplace innovation platform tool, how it's going to change your life. If they listen to this and they're not convinced, I don't know what else is going to convince them.
Well, the other podcast that people in that situation should definitely make a point of listening to is the one we did a few weeks back on FileMaker versus Excel. And that is a real classic scenario where businesses, thousands, tens of thousands of them, perhaps millions, use Excel to run their business, and it's not designed for that. FileMaker is.
So I think we're just about done with the workplace innovation platform. Hopefully it's been educational. Hopefully it supported some of your viewpoints, and hopefully you can send somebody over here to listen to it to convince them that FileMaker is the tool for them. So this is John Mark Osborne,
And I'm Michael Rashad.
and thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye bye now.
You've been listening to Fireside FileMaker, a podcast with John Mark Osborne and Michael Rashad. We'd love to hear what you think, so please email us at info@firesidefilemaker.com. That's info@firesidefilemaker.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.